So today we are going to be talking about time and everything from the first dimension all the way up to the 10th dimension. And we're going to be talking about how they can be displayed in two different ways. One of them is going to be like the science way, where like everyone pretty much agrees, and the other way is going to be my one, could maybe possibly be possible. So let's go into that.
Before we discuss the first dimension, we could say that we first started out with dimension 0, which is the geometrical concept of the point. A point indicates a location in a system, and each point is of indeterminate size. The first dimension then takes two of these points and joins them with a line. When we imagined the fourth dimension, it was as if we were treating the entirety of three-dimensional space in a particular state as a single point, and drawing a fourth-dimensional line to another point, representing space as it is in a different state. We often refer to the line we have just drawn as time. Then, in the seventh dimension, we treated all of the possible timelines which could be generated from our Big Bang as if this were a single point, and imagine drawing a line to a point representing all the possible timelines for a completely different universe. Now, as we enter the 10th dimension, we have to imagine all the possible branches for all the possible timelines of all the possible universes and treat that as a single point in the 10th dimension. So far, so good. But this is where we hit a roadblock. If we're going to imagine the 10th dimension as continuing the cycle and being a line, then we're going to have to imagine a different point that we can draw that line to. But there's no place left to go. By the time we have imagined all possible timelines for all possible universes as being a single point in the 10th dimension, it appears that our journey is done. In string theory, physicists tell us that superstrings vibrating in the 10th dimension are what create the subatomic particles which make up our universe, and all of the other possible universes as well. In other words, all possibilities are contained within the 10th dimension, which would appear to be the concept we have just built for ourselves, as we imagined the 10 dimensions built one upon another.
Okay, so that was basically the gist. I showed you actually a small part of the video. That's probably like a third of it. But anyways, so what I imagine is, so in the second dimension, the third dimension could be described as time. Okay, you with me? Okay, so that means that we could possibly means that the fourth dimension can also be described as time, which of course it is. But then what if we were in the fourth dimension? Then the fifth dimension would be described as time. What I'm getting at is, if you're in the fourth dimension, theoretically it would be like its own contained universe, and it would basically be describing the third dimension. Just like how the third dimension describes the second dimension, and how the second dimension describes the first dimension. Think of it like that. So, technically, there could be infinite dimensions if this is the way we're going to be thinking about it. So then, that would contradict what was previously said. So, let's just say there's 10 dimensions. So that would mean that there would be 10 dimensions describing other dimensions. Of course, the first dimension describing the 0th dimension, the entire history of the 0th dimension, which is literally nothing, so it would just be a dot, obviously. And then the second dimension, maybe the dot in the first dimension, maybe the dot changed, so in the second dimension it'd be documenting all the changes. The second dimension would be documenting all the changes in the first dimension. The third dimension would be documenting all the changes in the fourth dimension. You could describe this as time, but you also could describe it as separate realities. And I think my theory, of course, has less credit to it. It could be right if like it had more proof. Of course, I don't think anybody's ever really done research on that. So who knows? I'm probably wrong.